to the back, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Revenova, the official TMS provider for the Freight Coach. You guys, I've been a broker for a long time, and the tools that are at your disposal with Revenova help you eliminate bouncing between systems, which improves your accuracy when you are managing multiple tasks throughout your workday. Plus, it's built into the Salesforce cloud, so your CRM is fully integrated with your TMS, eliminating yet another silo. In today's day and age, you are definitely concerned about the safety of your data. With Revenova, it's fully protected. They have cutting-edge security that keeps your information safe so you can focus on what matters most, and that's growing your business. Speaking of growing your business, with Rate and Lane IQ, you get real-time pricing and route recommendations, helping you optimize costs and improve operational efficiencies, which ultimately helps you make smarter decisions. If you are like me and have recurring shipments from non-EDI customers, they have intuitive cloning features that let you easily replicate previous shipments, saving both shipper and carrier rates with just a few taps. If you are ready to learn more, visit www.revenova.com to request a demo. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I got some very special guests for you guys here today. I'm going to bring them up in a minute. We're going to break down a lot of just like the hot button issues out there, and especially like with a lot of the fallout with the Montgomery case, which there's never a shortage of information out there in regards to that. But what there is a shortage of is tangible action steps about what you can actually do with the fallout of that. So we're going to be breaking down some of that today. But before we get into that, you guys, we've got to do my favorite segment, which is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. Again, you guys, this is a 100% viewer-submitted lane analysis. What do I mean by that? You guys send me the lanes that you guys are moving. I'm going to help you read them. There's a lot of fluctuations that can happen over the course of a year, but not as many as you see on social media. It's never as volatile as some people make it want to seem, because, like, frankly, I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm just helping you guys do what I do every single day, because your boy actually moves freight. So this one today, it is reefer analysis, and it is Portland, Oregon to Salt Lake City, Utah. And the first thing I'm noticing is this lane is performing unlike almost every lane we've been talking about these last 3 weeks. There's been a lot of stability out there in the market, except for outbound Oregon. There's been a spike of about, $500 that we're seeing here over these last couple of days. And one thing to pay attention, though, and this is the big thing that we always look at, you guys, is if we look at the rolling 12 months, usually end of July, which we're kind of already coming up on, does start to increase in price out of the Pacific Northwest. And for those of you who are unaware, there's a big produce push out of the Pacific Northwest that you're going to start seeing here. Usually that starts around September, around harvest time, with apples and onions and potatoes and stuff up in, that bleeds into Idaho a little bit. but you'll see that. And then it leverages right into Christmas trees. It stays elevated out of the Pacific Northwest. So this might be kind of that beginning sign of an elevated rates out of that region. But one point of emphasis that I always look at when I am moving freight, you guys, is the miles. Miles matter more than you think, not only for a rate per mile, but transit, what day of the week this stuff ships on. This is a great Monday through Wednesday lane, but if this is a Thursday to Monday for whatever reason out there, you're going to see a higher price point on this. Even if this is Friday to Monday, you're going to see a higher price point on this compared to if this was moving Monday through Wednesday. And what do I mean by that is most weekend runs, you guys, people want miles, right? They want 1,000, 2,000 miles, unless you find a driver who lives in Utah or en route down to Salt Lake City. It's a great lane for them to take. But like if you're looking for that carrier to kind of fill a gap in there, it's going to be exponentially more expensive out there. I would always advise my customers when these loads come up, because I do this, hey, if there's any probability we can ship this on a different day, where you're going to see a better price point out there, because like that is our literal job, is to find the best option for our customers. But I think like right now, and to kind of tie in what we're going to be discussing here on the show today, you guys, you got to dive into this core carrier base that I described, because there are plenty of carriers out there who run this lane consistently. We move a lot of obscure lanes. And what I mean by that is we don't have like big city to big city for a ton of our freight out there, right? Like we have those secondary cities, the ones that are like 100, 200 miles out of major metropolitan areas. And there are plenty of carriers out there who run those almost exclusively, right? So it's like when you're going out there, keeping this freight off the spot board, finding those carriers that are running these lanes consistently, that is going to help insulate your customers from the volatilities that a market can come up with, or specifically on one of these gray area miles where it's like, there's not going to be a lot of guys who want to grab this on a Thursday for a Monday or a Friday for a Monday unless they live in that area. And when you're working these lanes the way that you're supposed to, you're going to develop a lot of that consistency out there to where it's like you're going to be able to insulate from the spikes. And that is what we need to do right now more than ever is apply these strategies, though, and not just when it's convenient for us. Again, it's like you see this lane, though, it looks like it's going to continue to rise out there. This might be one of those rare ones. But again, if you start looking at the seasonality of what the Pacific Northwest delivers later on in the year, that explains a lot of it. Your customers should be aware of it. And if they're not, deliver them that information. You guys, be an actual transportation professional out there, and you're going to separate yourself from the rest of the pack. But that is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. This is Portland, Oregon to Salt Lake City. It's like the first lane in the last 3 weeks that I've actually seen a spike in pricing on. So if you're selling on volatility and rates increasing out there, you guys, it's an uphill battle and you're losing, because the seasoned professionals out there are insulating their customers from that. So let's dive into our main topic here today. And we are going to be, I think it's one of the most unique names out there. The company is called Exhibit A, and we're going to be describing and talking about what they're breaking down. So I want to welcome Robert and Merul with Exhibit A on the show. You guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it.
No, man, I'm looking forward to it. So what is Exhibit A? Let's start with that. Like, it's got some mystique behind it, right? Because
yeah, so I think it's good to kind of talk about more or less like how we started and kind of like where we got to the point of like creating Exhibit A. So, I come from a freight brokerage background and in tech and such. And then most recently at a fraud company as well and a betting platform. And then, Merrill, who's joining us, and one of our other developers, Patrick, are cryptography backgrounds and developers. And then we have a fourth co-founder, Alex, who comes from a cybersecurity background. So we were, kind of figuring out, what we could do. And then when the Montgomery Carob decision came out, we go, wow, this is really big, especially on the documentation side and dealing with litigation and lawyers. And that's how we kind of came up with Exhibit A. And what we've seen is from, listening to different webinars from insurance companies, Cassandra Gaines put on a really, really good webinar on like the CAVR standards, and then even having the lawyer from the Montgomery decision come on. Everything has been based around documentation. So from a lawyer's perspective, what we give as Exhibit A is that documentation. And that's where our basis is, on the cargo side. I saw like, hey, from the different vetting platforms, is there an audit trail? Now, a lot of them have come out already and said, hey, we are building out an audit trail. We have one specifically for us. So that is amazing to see. We have we basically built a multi-platform aggregator that does the audit trail. And then talking to different brokerages as well, the other thing we've noticed is everybody has an SOP. And that was another part, was like, hey, give us, like, how do you document the process of vetting these carriers?
Yeah.
So we built out an SOP operations intelligence platform that can actually track each step of the way and customize to what you're doing as an SOP. So you can tell, say you have 40 some different offices, you can tell who in every office is actually abiding by their SOP and who's not. And you can actually, take steps to fix it, to reprimand, or to escalate prior to something happening.
Yeah,
that's where Exhibit A came from, is basically like, hey, if you're presenting this to a lawyer, this is Exhibit A. This is all our documentation.
Yeah, that is, because I've had a couple of attorneys come on the show since the ruling came down. And, again, everybody's a legal expert out there on social media. I'm being sarcastic, entirely sarcastic, but it's like, it's one of those things where and this is what always baffled me from a lot of the responses that I saw is they're like, oh, you just need an SOP. I'm like, you've clearly never been sued before. As someone who has been sued, it's not about what you have written down. It's about what can be proven. Like there's a big difference between that. There's such a disconnect from what I've seen out there. But it's like, if you look at the Montgomery case in particular, and I know a lot of people love to throw stones at the brokers that were involved, and a lot of the larger brokers that are out there. I think that a lot of people also missed the mark on with a lot of the fallout of the ruling is it's like it's not just an SOP anymore. All right, like you have to prove what you did to like essentially eliminate any probable thing that because there can't be anything that a lawyer can pick out, be like, you missed that step. You should have done this. This information was readily available. So it's like, you have to be able to have that out there. So is that essentially what you guys are, is it like an audit where I could essentially upload my SOP into Exhibit A and you guys could be like, here's a potential vulnerability, here's a potential vulnerability, and this is what you guys should look at?
So we don't tell you what your vulnerabilities are. We recommend that you take that up with your general counsel, your lawyers, or your insurance company to figure out what that is, because everybody's going to be different, because again, every brokerage is ran differently, and we don't want to hold you back from something else. Now, what this can do from like an insurance perspective and working with different insurance companies is provide best practices as we, engage with different brokerages, which one seems to have the best route.
Yeah. It's, again, it's one of those situations where I think the warning shot that I think was fired from this is if you don't have, because I don't know every operation that is out there, but I know not a lot of people write shit down, right? Like I know not a lot of people actually have SOPs and processes that they follow. I'm aware of that because like I hear a lot of shit, and I've also worked at a lot of organizations, and when just talking with people, right? Like that was one of the first things we did when we started our business, because contrary to popular opinions on the internet, you don't just become a millionaire and have a shitload of freight right when you start out on your own. And we took those early days to document all of our processes, our everything. Like we had more training put together than we did like customers early on when we were building stuff up. Right. And a lot of it comes down from the fact, though, that like that's where all the value is in an organization is it is in the processes, it is in the systems that you can transfer out there. And I think this was kind of that warning shot that was fired, where it's like, hey, if you don't have a vetting software, if you don't have a system in place, you need to implement one today, because like you have to be able to prove in court now that you did do everything that you could. And again, I think another thing that was kind of lost in translation as well is it kind of kicked it back down to the states as well, which I personally think that's where it all should be done at the end of the day. But so Merul, what is something that you guys have identified as, when you're going out there from a disconnect that your customers have uploaded to like the expectation compared to what like the reality was?
So At the moment, a lot of these brokerages, they don't necessarily have mechanisms on tracking how well their SOPs are being followed. At the moment, it's a bit of a guesswork. They have really good documentation when it comes to actually showing what those SOPs looks like, but the adherence part is completely missing from the industry at the moment. There are some tools which have an audit trail, but it's all scattered. If you're using 2 to 3 vetting tools and you throw in a visibility platform and also fleet tracking and fleet management, and at this point, you start to get a huge disconnect from where people expect their SOP compliance would be to when they eventually start rolling with us and start to enter their SOPs, they would see that there's a huge difference on what the adherence should be and what it actually is. And when we were speaking to a couple of attorneys, they emphasized that it's important that in case there's, let's say, one load, it's negligently booked. Yeah. It's important to prove that this was a standout case, and it isn't the general case in this brokerage. It's not the way that things are usually run. Yeah. They have to have documentation that all the other loads are booked correctly. There's proper due diligence behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's and that's a thing. I think a lot of transportation companies are going to be faced with here is that what you're describing. You can have great SOPs, but if there's nobody actually ensuring that they're being applied out there, that is two very big things. Because then, that's another thing too. You brought up a really good point. Pattern. Can you prove that that was an isolated incident and that isn't actually inadvertently your SOP to not vet carriers, to push people to do illegal activities out there? And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that kind of come to light, unfortunately. And like I've said from the beginning, the Montgomery case was a very big deal, but I'm more paying attention to the next one, right? Like the next one that comes out, because I think what the exposure, a level of exposure that I view out there is what happens if they did prove that they did everything wrong and something happened and they were still found negligent? Then what, right? Like, how does that fundamentally change the industry? And it's also like from the shippers that book directly with a carrier out there, are they going, and that's another area where I also view it, I view it as an opportunity, and I'll get to that. But I think that when a shipper who booked a carrier direct, whether it was a driver incident or something, and negligence is proven there and they're sued for $100 million and lose, how is that going to fundamentally change how they tender their freight? Are they going to require, let's go to a broker because brokers take on a shitload of risk as it is. Let's throw that on there.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw the case with was it Warner and Home Depot kind of put that one of, hey, you're booking with one of a top 10 asset-based trucking company and you're Home Depot. So this is a little bit different than like ABC hardware booking ABC trucking.
Yeah. I was going to say, I actually had an attorney on the show right after that ruling came out, and I specifically asked him about that. I'm like, what influence did the Montgomery case have on that? And he said, without being privy to any of the case information, he said slim to none, because he's like, by the time that one was released, he's like, there's such a slim chance that all of those decisions and briefs weren't already written before the Supreme Court ruling came out. So that one was kind of a false hope for the market. And because it was almost like he was just describing, it was just too close in time to where a case of both magnitudes, the briefs and all of the decisions are made, like a week prior, essentially, and it probably didn't influence it at all. But I think that's the risk, though, because it's like, and this is why I think you guys have a massive opportunity to even not just go to brokers, go to shippers who go direct to carriers out there. Hey guys, we got to, what does your system look like? Are you guys adhering to this every single time? And I think another area that organizations need to focus on, and, I was just brought up Cassandra Gaines earlier. She's a really good friend of mine, and she had put out an article about this. And it's like, how many people don't continuously vet their providers, right? Like they got set up one time and they might only look at it on a yearly basis, or if a carrier buys a 2-year insurance policy, their TMS might not even flag it until the next policy might be up for renewal, right? Because they're showing active.
Yeah, and I think that's where keeping a tight hold on who you're booking, the carriers that you have, is a big ordeal, and that's why having that SOP in place and being able to document it and being able to make sure that you're checking these carriers every time is a key thing. And then also making sure that, your vetting platform is allowing you to do those things. The big thing is a lot of this is going to go back on the vetting platforms to make sure that they're like warning these, hey, this has changed. These SMS scores have risen. You need to be aware of these and then make your decisions and your rules based on that.
So let me ask you this. And again, feel free to say you're not sure. And because this is the thing that comes to my mind now. Are vetting platforms going to be off the hook in these situations, right? Because it's like I could see, and I'm not blaming any vetting platform that's out there, but this is just a question that comes to my mind is from the FMCSA essentially said, hey, it doesn't matter what we say, we're not liable, even though we allowed the carrier to run down the road. That's my take, Chris Jolly's only. But then our vetting platforms going to be pulled into this litigation because I could see a broker or a shipper or somebody who is using the vetting platform come up with the response of like, I used it because you said it was clear to use. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done that. Do you think that that's going to be a natural progression, or is that probably in their contracts that like, hey, the information we provide is just information, it's your decision?
I think personally, if you're giving a grade or you're giving a recommendation based on that, then they could come back and say, well, you recommended me. But if you're just providing data and then you're as a broker providing the rule set in which the data will play a part in, I don't think that my personal opinion, I don't think that they should be held liable because you're essentially setting the rules in which you want to abide by. They're just providing the data to you.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair, right?
And I'd also add to that in most cases on the vetting platforms, it's the broker's rules which are actually making the decision on the pass or fail grade. So it wouldn't go back to the vetting platform, in my opinion. Yeah. I'm no legal expert, but that's just my opinion there.
No, for sure, right? And those are the things that kind of come to my mind is because, you see a lot of companies out there marketing their solution is the answer to fraud, double brokering, everything out there. And that's why it is. It's like, as somebody who's, just a casual observer of the industry, AKA I've dedicated my entire life to this stuff. I'm like, if you're telling me everything's good and I'm setting the parameters that you provide me, how are you absolving yourself from any and all liability, right? Again, I'm not accusing any one company of anything, but like, I think that's a natural progression here. And especially when, again, in my opinion, the FMCSA essentially absolved themselves from any potential fallout of this stuff, right? That like my take on it is they like what was passed down was, hey, the government, hey, we're not liable, even though we're the governing agency that gives the pass fail, the yes or no grade of anybody to operate on our freeways. It's not actually on us. It's on the people out there who are choosing to use said carrier. Do you think that ever fundamentally changes? Because like, again, I look at it where if somebody says this person is good to use, the government says this carrier is good to use, we use them, and then it turns out they weren't a real business, but they were given authority to operate on our freeways. Do you think that this changes things, right? Like, how do you add that to your SOP to protect your organization?
I think it's really hard because when you look at the different standards people are broadcasting and things of that nature, it's hard because is it, just the scores? Is it the safety scores? Is it your internal knowledge? Is it their tracking ability? There's so many variables that come into play where like I can have all the scores that said vetting platform gives me, but then I'm missing something because I needed the visibility because I need to know if they're tracking properly. So I think it's really hard. And that's where, those first 5 cases are really going to be detrimental to, as an industry, how everybody is graded and what standards they hold themselves to. And I think I've seen different groups have been lobbying for that is like, hey, we would like to know. I think what I've seen, I think TIA is really big into let us know what you guys are thinking here so we can kind of play within that box.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by the tracking portion of what you're describing?
Because I saw like, hey, are they tracking properly? Or is there visibility into them too? Are they on the roads? Because you were saying, hey, you have an MC and, is it a viable business? Mm-hmm. So are they doing the things that are correctly that you hold yourself to. As
Okay. Sorry. When I hear tracking, I think like load tracking, visibility, where's the driver at in transit and stuff like that.
And I think that matters too, because, you know, we've seen them where they spoof things and things go a little haywire. So it's many different ways.
Yeah, it's you know, again, like I think this is going to boil down to, you know, what you guys are doing here. It is creating a rock solid SOP and ensuring that your team is adhering to these policies. Because, you know, I was trained early on in this industry. There is literally only so much as a broker I can say to a driver, right? Like there is only so much I can say to a carrier. There's only so much information I can provide to them in the moment, because ironically, there was a case that happened right when I started in this industry where a broker gave a driver directions down a one-way street and the driver hit and killed somebody because he took the wrong road, and the broker was found liable. And that's why I was always told you can only give an address. You can't give anything further than that for like pickup information and stuff. And, you know, again, like there's a lot of those things where it's like, you got to understand what sandbox you can play in, and what you can and cannot say out there, because it's like, if you are, and there's been a lot of stuff that's happened here. Like if you look at AB5, like that was a big thing out in the state of California here about the independent contractor rule and stuff like that. You know, what is that line between you're treating somebody as an employee and an independent contractor? And again, it's like, if you have an SOP that actually promotes you to engage in that style of behavior, like you could legitimately lose your entire livelihood. You know, like these nuclear verdicts that are going on out there. And then especially now with a lot of stuff being, you know, you look at dash cam footage that's out there. There's a lot of companies that post some of these crash videos online. They're nuts to see the optics alone of what you're seeing out there. Like most people in transportation are guilty until proven innocent, especially the drivers that are out there, the fleets. They are guilty until proven innocent. And because it's like, if you look at, you just go back to that U-turn case down in Florida, for example, that accident that happened out there, when how many people saw that saw that van that killed those individuals that were out there. It's like, if you don't have something behind the scenes showing that, hey, we didn't engage in this behavior, you're done, right? Like, again, I'm not a lawyer, but when you see video and then if your phone calls are recorded as well, like that's a very, very tough case to defend that you weren't engaging in negligent behavior.
Mm-hmm. And I think it all, like what we try to do is we just want to make sure that you have the facts, that you can escalate things that need to be, and that you have like a standard that everybody's following and that you can track. Because, you know, we talk about all these things, the what ifs, but the big what if is, okay, what if you don't have all this stuff and you have to go to litigation and you have to go to discovery and you're spending $150,000 on litigation costs, plus you have a carrier sales rep that, you know, if this is 5 years in the making, he goes on stand 5 years after the fact, maybe he's gone, maybe something had occurred at the company for him to leave. So now he's not your biggest fan, and he has to tell you what happened that day that he booked it, you know, and what's the liability to him, what's the liability to the company. If you have everything documented where it's like, okay, hey, we booked him ABC Trucking at 11:57 on July 22nd. This is what the information we were privy to. This is the SOP. We did it. It should be an open and shut case on that side, because you've been able to give all that information. Now, you know, the tech providers, everybody else isn't, if they are going to deposition, at least they have like, hey, you guys look at the documentation. This is what we were able to see, and this is what we were doing. And like Merrill said, on the other side is like, okay, if they are, you know, not following it, do you have the audit trail in the background to showcase it? And then something on the side that we were kind of thinking about and talking to more brokers and other providers as well is, with an SOP, you're really finding out more about your business. So there's a lot, you know, earlier we started talking about all the technology providers that are coming out there, but there's a lot of technology that people are purchasing that may not be in use, or maybe part of the SOP that people aren't fully utilizing, or there's technology that people are utilizing way more than they even knew that they were utilizing. And so you can kind of make a decision on like, should I continue with this? Should I upgrade this technology? And then to even go from there, as we switch into the AI world, you know, everything's about processes and automating different things. If you have a solid SOP and you can track those, this is an easy play for the AI automation as well.
What, you know, since you brought up AI, I got to ask, what's your opinion on like AI load booking And what if something like this slips between the cracks? Like who gets sued then, right? Is it the company, or I mean, because is it the AI technology that you purchase? And I think, to kind of tie it into something else, like I think that that's what the biggest hang up is with autonomous drivers out there. And the biggest thing is like who's actually liable if the technology fails. So like what's your opinion on that, right? Like what could be the potential fallout if it's like, oh, our AI bot booked the load, like we didn't know? Like, is that a defense?
For me personally, I'll let Merul talk too then, is I think that because you are still the holder and you're still the one hey, if it's Rob Miller Logistics that's booking ABC Trucking, it doesn't really matter if it's an AI bot booking or if it's not. But I think that you also need to understand what's happening and how the AI is processing each and every load. So you're still going to essentially have eyes on it to make sure that they are doing it, because one of the things that we hear a lot about in the AI side is all about the data and the data in. And when you're allowing essentially entry level to collect and make all the data that you're using, you really need to make sure that data is good and that data is correct and that everything is going to work correctly when you need it to fire off.
Yeah. Merul?
So regarding AI in particular, AI, in my opinion, is almost as good as a junior employee, and you need to have a lot of governance there as the business. So the responsibility should eventually fall back on the business, as Rob was saying correctly. There needs to be governance on what's going on. There needs to be continuous monitoring, and maybe even some approvals in the loop to make sure that whoever was the carrier that was eventually booked is someone who's worthy of the load. Because eventually AI is prone to errors. It's a technology which is fundamentally going to make mistakes sometimes, similar to humans. So you need some governance there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, you still need that checks and balance system when it comes to technology, when it comes to your operations out there. And the ultimate analogy that I always use is, planes have essentially been flying themselves since the 80s, right? Like autopilot's been a thing for a very, very long time, but I'm never stepping on an airplane if there's no pilots that are going to enter the cockpit, like under any circumstances. And I think that, and it's because it's that human ability to step in and make sure that things are all right. And I think that that's what people's mindset towards AI, especially inside of freight, need to be is it's like, hey, automate it to a point, but you need that human element to come in and that checks and balance, at least in today's current capabilities. I'm not saying that it's not going to improve and, in the future, but I think in today's environment, you do need, and especially when it comes to carrier vetting and everything else, you need that human to step in at the last minute, use your gut intuition more often than not about what who you're working with out there. Because again, I think like you're exposing yourself a lot more than people think. And again, this is why you got to have those checks and balances in there with your SOPs. And, I love what you guys are building here. I truly think that every organization out there should do that. And especially when it comes into having their internal counsel be able to review a lot of that stuff, because again, you might think it's cool, but your attorney might be like, absolutely not. Thank you guys both for joining me here today. How does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you're building at Exhibit A?
We can reach out to us via LinkedIn or on our website. We have a form to fill out and get a demo and talk to us a little deeper. It's at www.exhibita.io.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. If you have a problem finding them, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with Exhibit A. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling